Awesome. Fantastic.
Good
I'm going to
morning.
let you guys take it away from here, and I'll be back.
Yeah. Welcome, Gav. A warm welcome from the whole ecosystem community here. It's inspiring to have you here. So I'll do a quick introduction, and then we'll get right to it. She needs no introduction, guys. Gav's here. C-level executive, former C-level executive at Microsoft, 30 plus years of leadership experience across so many different aspects of partnering, marketing, sales, product dev. What's really fascinating is that, you know, the amount of P&L she drove at Microsoft was just astounding. And more importantly, 1 trillion through the Microsoft ecosystem, Microsoft powered ecosystem. That's just an astounding amount of ecosystem value generated, right? She's definitely a change agent as well, as many of you have personally experienced this. And she's a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate. Much of her more recent work in terms of gender equity and co-founding things like Women in Cloud and Women in Technology Network. These are some pioneering efforts that she has done. And as we see here with Mary, Sandy, and Gav, even in the ecosystem world, there's a transition in terms of women in leadership roles as well. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Warm welcome, Gav.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's get right to it. As we think about the ecosystem world, can you reflect on your long arc in managing from a leadership point of view? How do ecosystems drive value for customers? And why should CEOs really care about this? You know, why is this so important for CEOs to now make this their top agenda?
Well, it's really important to have an ecosystem around you as a customer and as a provider, because it enables you to scale and meet the needs of your business in a way that you cannot do if you are sole sourcing, also that you cannot do if you are trying to just do everything yourself, right? So I'll take those two sides of that, right? As a customer, it's important to have a really robust ecosystem of providers because you have a lot of needs as an organization, and they play a very, very different roles in enabling your success and helping you to build for innovation. Similarly, as a provider, take Microsoft, we need to meet the needs of 6 billion people on the planet. And there is no way that as an organization, we could invest enough in the people that we hire to be able to meet all of those needs. We really need people who are embedded in the community, who understand the customers, who understand the customer needs, and to really give us that feedback, give us that insight, and then also deliver value back to those customers, pulling from the content, the assets, and the innovations that we have to be able to meet those needs. And I think that the same is true of any provider, whether you are a 50-person organization or a 10,000-person organization, or like Microsoft, 100,000, you still need that ecosystem around you, because you just can't do everything for everyone. But if you want to continue to grow your business, these organizations that are in your ecosystem really add value, complement the services, complement the technologies that you deliver, and provide a more holistic approach to delivering value to your customer.
So the business case for the CEO is very clear and stark. So that's awesome to hear. I also fascinated with Microsoft's journey around, going beyond reselling and channel. And you kind of led that motion back then, working with ISVs. Sandy was talking about how 90% of partners are also going to be app developers. Mary was talking about how services companies like Deloitte is actually owning asset in terms of their IP. So can you tell a little bit about how did you manage this transition just from pure channel to a larger ecosystem strategy?
Well, so when I first, came back into the partner world, my mission was to figure out, how do I bring our partners into a cloud economy? How do I help them take advantage of the benefits of the cloud? And there's a very big difference in your ecosystem and the way your ecosystem looks when you are selling on-premise software that, they're going to buy it, it has a life, or it sits on a shelf, but it has a life, and then, then they might buy it again if they found value in it, versus, something that's always on, where a customer really needs to see and feel the value of what they're getting every day. And so, in one sense, for the on-premise side, you needed a lot of sellers, right? And you needed someone who was going in there and just selling the thing. And then you needed a different group of people who were maybe going to make the thing work, right? And then some people that would make it, would support it. In cloud, it becomes a lot more fluid, right? The customer's expectations from that always on service are a lot more fluid. And because you're trying to drive consumption, you're trying to drive usage, then you're not actually looking for just a bunch of sellers. Even within Microsoft, we were changing the role of our sellers. So they're not sellers, they're customer success managers. They're focused on, the long-term value of this, of the success of the customer. And that required a lot of changes within the way that Microsoft recognized and valued partners, and then and helping partners to understand how would they change and transition their business, just like Microsoft was changing and transitioning our business. And so it took a lot of work to create kind of those workshops and help organizations understand, what does the new view of profitability look like? How do you get there? How do you make that transition when you're used to getting kind of that upfront payment for either a project or for something you've sold, and suddenly you've got to go into kind of a low initial sale and do a land and expand. It's very, very different model. So yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun helping organizations to make those transitions. I'm still doing that in a lot of the executive board work that I do. And it's, it's a necessary evolution, I think, of technology.
Awesome, Gabriela. That's great insight there. One of the fascinating things about your experience has been, like, a lot of companies are in different places in their journey, right? One is, how do you start ecosystems around you? The other is, how do you mature it? But one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how do you scale the GTM of an ecosystem? What are some nuggets that have worked for you and that we can all learn from?
Yeah, I mean, so the way you scale an ecosystem is that you help everyone in it understand they're part of an ecosystem, right? And help them understand and identify what is their role in that. I mean, as Sandy said, many of the organizations, they do multiple things, right? They may have a great sales force. They may also build technology and bring those to market. And then they may also support other technologies and help in the implementation and delivery of those. And but even when your organization is performing multiple tasks, you have to understand where each of those fits into the broader ecosystem. And so it starts with the customer, right? It starts with understanding who is your customer and what is the ecosystem of the customer, right? What does that supply chain look like? And what are the needs that they have? And then what do you bring to the table? And what else would you need to have complementing what you bring to the table in order to truly meet the needs of the customer and provide them long-term value? And when you understand that, then you can start to understand where you fit in and how you fit in, right? And so as Microsoft built a go-to-market, we would look at the needs of the customer sets that we had and say, who is their ecosystem? In some cases, we even mapped who was their existing ecosystem, and then how can we actually drive a go-to-market motion, a campaign, a build technology that would add value in that and scale, again, kind of scale the impact that we could have in meeting the needs of the customer.
Wow, that's very interesting insight, that focus on the end customer, potentially around their ecosystem, who are their partners, build joint plans, joint account plans with these partners. And whatever the partner's unique role in serving to that end customer is, show them their role in that and be an enabler for that role. That's fascinating. That's like actually something that could work for a lot of us. From that point of view, I think the attach motion becomes very important, right? Can you talk a little bit about that simple but very powerful motion of attach?
Yeah, I mean, so when you are when you're looking at what your product is, what your service is, what you need to decide is, am I a lead or am I an attach? Mm-hmm. Right? And then if I'm an attach, what is my lead? Right? At what point is a customer? So for instance, if I'm selling security solutions on top of M365, then M365 is the lead. I'm the attach. Right. Mm-hmm. And so then how do I get into that attach motion? And at what point in a sales cycle does it make sense for me to get involved? Right. Because I could get involved way too early and that's going to waste a lot of my time. I could get involved way too late and the decision's already made. Right. And so, it's important to understand where you are. And sometimes you recognize you are a lead, right? You're like, oh, well, I am the, I'm selling in the business value of technology to an accountant's office. And so I become the lead, and the attach, I can bring on and along a whole lot of the other infrastructure and decisions that the customer is going to make. And so understanding, are you a lead or an attach, and then figuring out how you connect to the other players that are in that motion so that you are getting engaged at just the right moment. That's how you maximize your sales and your profitability.
Massive. I'm going to focus on a few questions that are coming on the chat here to make it more interactive as well. So feel free to raise your hand and ask a question. One question that I see here is in terms of metrics, Anup is asking or sharing probably, should you be looking at key metrics other than revenue, for example, like managing trust and some of the other intangibles in partnering? How do you do that?
Yeah, you need to look at a number of different factors. You're going to look at things like customer churn. You're going to look at the overall customer acquisition costs. You're going to look at how long does it take you, the velocity of a sale. And then you want to also look at then the customer satisfaction, long-term customer value. And then also, you want to look at the actual deployment, usage, consumption of whatever it is that you've sold, and then your ability to kind of cross-sell, upsell, and expand the motion within the customer. So there's a lot of different ways that you're going to measure your success, and it isn't just the revenue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, intangibles too. That's massive. Another one is, what are the characteristics of some of the best partners you have worked with?
So the best partners understand their core value. They understand who their customer is, who their target customer is, and what they bring to the table, and they can clearly articulate that value proposition. So they know, am I part of a lead motion, an attach motion? Who's the ecosystem around me? Who is my customer? Who is the ecosystem around my customer? And I think that's where I spent the majority of my time as I was working with partners and coaching them, is to help them to understand what those things are, because there's a tendency to say, I can do anything. I can be anyone. I can reach any customer. I can, and it's like, well, maybe you can, but but should you, and where do you really want to focus your business, and what's going to provide you with the greatest long-term upside as a company, and then where are you going to invest your resources? And on when a partner could come in and clearly articulate that, it was very easy then to place them in this map of, okay, you belong in this motion with this set of technologies, with this set of sellers, with this set of customers, and we can drive for success really quickly.
Awesome, awesome. One more question I would ask is what is your advice to aspiring partner leaders, chief partner officers, especially women who are trying to be chief partner officers?
Well, so you know what, that's a big question, actually. So generally to people who are aspiring to be chief partner officers, it is to understand what it is your organization needs from partnerships, to remember that partnerships are a two-way street. They have to be a win-win for both your organization and the organization you're partnering with. So how do you set that up to be sustainable and long-term? How do you make sure that everyone in your organization is acting with integrity and understands the value and the point of the partnership and what you're both trying to achieve? So, you know, when you do that, then you can actually, you know, really set up the right ecosystems, the right motions that enable everyone to grow their business together. And, you know, all boats rise with the tide. I think what I would say to women you know, who are aspiring to be chief partner officers and leaders is just know that you are not alone. I mean, the tech industry is and still remains very, very male dominated. And so a lot of the challenges you're going to face, you're going to sit there and think, is it me? What do I need to do? How do I change? It's not you. There's a lot that's still like embedded in kind of the culture of technology that you know, that does tend to make you feel like maybe you don't belong. Just know you do belong, that your voice matters, that your contribution matters, that you know, what you bring to the table with your lived experiences and, you know, the view that you have of partnerships, of collaboration, and innovation and drive, those are valued, and just keep at it.
Yeah, and especially if you look at partnering, you know, it's famously said that 60% of partnering fails because of various reasons, you know, and especially this is a hard role. And a lot of people who are aspiring, not just women, but also men, they will deal with a lot of failure, right? And especially if you're a woman in a leadership role, it's a hard thing. And what I've seen is the ability, the integrative capabilities that one brings to the role, especially women, they are able to solve and see through these problems and solve for a win-win-win in a much better way. So that's awesome. Any more insights around this or in the upcoming book, Gav, that you have?
Well, I mean, I think that what I would ask is that everyone who's listening think about how do they work with intention to be better allies, to help support each other and drive for success for each other. So it's not just in partnerships, it's not just in building an ecosystem, it's in building your team, it's in building your organization, it's in work with your customer. How do you recognize the value of diversity and that everyone has a story to tell, everybody has a perspective and an opinion, and it matters. And when you can recognize the value of their contribution, and you can support that, and you can really listen to someone, not listen to respond or you know, kind of be thinking about what you are going to say or what you're going to do or trying to just solve a problem, but really listening to somebody's perspective. It makes you a better leader. It makes you a better seller. It makes you a better person. You know, and it helps you to be a better ally because you then can can kind of quell the judgment that may be going on in your mind as someone is talking with you or sharing something with you, and really try and think about it from their perspective and what they need and what they want and how you can help them and how you get to a place where you can support them and everyone can be successful.
Yeah, Chip, any more questions from the panelists? I'm unable to see the hand raises or anything else.
Yeah, there is actually another question from James. Thank you, Gabriella, for such an insightful discussion. How should an organization draw up a strategy for selecting and onboarding partners? Is there a best practice, and would you recommend everyone to follow? So
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, Chip, which is about understanding for your organization, what do you need? Like, where do you play? Who are your customers? And what's going to help your organization continue to grow? And then how do you actually think about what are the complementary services and skills that you need to be bringing to the market? Who else is in the customer's ecosystem already that you need to be able to play well with? Like, if you're a technology innovation provider, you need to be able to understand what are the other technologies a customer is going to use, and how are you building integrations and APIs to make that easier, right? And that's all part of your ecosystem. And you know, a lot of this is going to be trial and error, right? And one of the things, well, there's a couple different lessons that I've learned over the years, right? One is that failure is inevitable. Like, you are going to fail 60% of the time. And that's okay. I mean, I liken failure to when you're doing one of those mazes, you know, you have to go from this point to this point, and there's a lot of dead ends along the way. I kind of look at life that way, right? That, you know, you want to go from this point to this point, and, you know, you're going to hit some dead ends, and that's your failures, right? You go, oh, okay, well, I got to back up to the, you know, the next place there was an opening, and I got to try again, right? And it's actually, success comes from your persistence and your willingness to learn and work through that, so that you can actually get to that successful outcome. So recognizing that it's, how do I actually pilot to scale? So how do I, you know, start small? It's very similar to your kind of land and expand with a customer. How do I start small? How do I start to understand what this looks like, what this works, how this works, how we can drive that success and learn from that, and then grow and grow and grow, as opposed to trying to bite off more than I can chew, do too many things at once. And because I won't be able to like manage the factors to understand what was success and what was failure in that.
Awesome.
That's great. That's a lesson for life. That's great. There is actually another question that's a little bit related, but maybe a little bit different. So from Nick, saying, even after scaling your ecosystem in such a big way, does an organization have to act as an orchestrator of the ecosystem? And, you know, if yes, what's your advice for smaller ISVs and professional services companies? What kind of role should they play in growing their ecosystem?
Well, so there's a number of different things on that. Like, no, you don't have to act as the orchestrator. I think if you actually have a healthy ecosystem, that's the value, is that, you know, things happen, other partnerships spring up within that ecosystem, and where you can, like, outsource to, you know, someone who's already done this, right? Like, so for instance, like WorkSpan, you're building these tools that help people to engage and interact with each other, you know, utilize those kinds of tools so that you're not having to start from scratch and do everything yourself. And this is an example, right? So you have a number of partners already engaged with WorkSpan who already have different other kinds of partnerships around different other ISVs. So as an ISV, you go, hey, that's a community where a lot of the partners I want to work with are already working. I want to join that community. I want to take advantage of that. And then I'm going to be clear, I am a lead to these other things you do, or I am an attach to these other things you do, and you know, help me understand how I get part of that. I think the problem a lot of organizations play, and I found this with a lot of the folks I worked with at Microsoft too, that I had to educate them, is you're not the sun, right? You are part of an ecosystem. So you're always going to have your point of view of what you're trying to do, but you have to recognize that you're part of something else where there's someone else also trying to get something done. So you can't orchestrate all of that. You want to jump in and be part of all of that.
Yeah. What a fascinating
Perfect.
insight. It's not just orchestrating your own ecosystem, you're participating in others, the joy of participating in a place that's already full, and you're part of the new conversation then, right? Not the one that you just started.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Gabriella, this has
Yeah,
been
sure.
fantastic. Just wonderful.
Fantastic insight.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gabriella. That was amazing. We look forward to hearing more from you throughout the years. And thank you for your sponsorship of WorkSpan earlier, and thrilled to be working with you throughout. So absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.